in Dubrovnik, Croatia, which is that place. Dude, we need to meet there. I mean, it's still, it's like 9:30 or something over here. Okay. Now that's me with some light finally. And can you see the Acropolis over my shoulder?
Oh, hell yeah, I can. No,
Is that
shit,
not
dude.
Crazy?
That is
So
awesome.
as our democracy falls apart, I am at the seat of democracy in the Western world. Oh,
Can I just be arrogant and say that is where it first fell apart?
well, yeah. When your heyday is before the Common Era. This is really a fascinating study to be here. So we did a bunch of the ruins earlier today, and the
Mhm.
Acropolis I'm actually doing tomorrow because all of us are familiar with the Acropolis. What we're not familiar with is everything else, and it's pretty fascinating. So, you want to talk some weird Bible stuff right now?
Oh, hell yeah. Why do you think I stayed
Right.
awake this late, even though I just came back
Dude,
from a
I know.
meeting?
She goes, "What's he doing?" And I go, "I don't even know. We are on such opposite time frames. Thank God we know each other. That's all I can say because I wouldn't do this. Hey, did you notice what I'm using?
Hell yeah. This is like more advanced than I've ever seen you do this.
I know. Well, my friend that came with me gave me the earbud and said, "You really got to stop using that thing with the two strings sitting." Okay, so from the Bible, there's an apostle named Paul. Are you
Mhm.
familiar with Paul? You had to go to
I
seminary
am
school once
familiar
in a
with
while.
Paul, but let's
Okay,
talk this.
so
Let's
for
do the dumb version. I don't mean
okay,
dumb
the dumb
version.
version is there was a guy named Saul that
Mhm,
followed Jesus and his crew around and made fun of him. But then he
mhm.
decided to join him, and for some reason, like a rapper, he changed his name to Paul. So Saul is Paul. I found that to be the most confusing thing in the world when my nun aunts would tell me this stuff. So Paul used to preach right there.
Oh, wow.
Right. So the hill I was on yesterday is where Paul addressed whatever politicians and religious people at the time would go. So here's the thing that most people don't know with Paul. And
Mhm,
so Paul used to always go to the synagogue first because he was a Jew. They were Jews. They would welcome him no matter where he was from. Kind of like, you would think most religious orders would do that, but that's not really the way it works. But it
mhm,
worked for him. And then he would start telling them about Jesus of Nazareth and that he rose from the dead. But then he would start saying the world's getting ready to end. And John used to do the same thing. So uh, you know, it's where things go a little awry. 2,000 years later, we're still waiting on it. But so Paul is up there speaking to them, and then he's also in a place called the Agra, which is
mhm,
actually a set of shops, like a shopping area that's really beautiful and laid out. I mean, think of it. This was the most important city in the Western world at the time. So
mhm.
everything was pretty top flight. But he's preaching to Jews that their religion doesn't count. He's preaching to Romans that their stuff doesn't count. And he's preaching to Greeks that their stuff doesn't count, that they should believe him who they don't even know, never met before. And he's probably a little more forward than he should be. So this is where everything goes good for him and where everything goes bad for him. So I am up on the hill and I'm there with my friend and I go, well, here's where he was speaking from. And she goes, how do you know? And I go, well, this is the only area a bunch of people could sit around there. I said, there wasn't 100 people. There was probably 12, if he was
Yeah.
lucky.
Mhm.
But they were the 12 important people who then said, oh, well, we'll have you go over here and explain yourself. So it's a fascinating thing. So his DNA is still up there.
I
John
bet.
was here as well. And you don't think that we're ever going to interact with stuff like that. But you guys in India, so you had Mother Teresa, a
Mm,
bunch of Americans go over there so she can tell them you didn't need to come here to see me. You could have done this at home
yeah.
because she was pretty blunt.
Oh, dude, like she is like the most like. To be honest with you, I just thought that she was short-tempered till I realized that
Right,
I'm pretty sure in her head she had so much stuff to do that
right.
it just was irrelevant to entertain.
Yeah. She didn't have time. Right, she didn't have
Mhm.
time. So you want to look at this thing and go, did Christianity take them down? So Paul didn't arrive here till like 55 in the Common Era. So 55 years after everything was renamed because Jesus died, right? So he would have been writing the letters here. So those would have been the first things written 55 years later. And then, so when you go, Paul's letter to the Thessalonians says Thessalonica is 300 miles from here, or I would have gone. I'm fascinated with this kind of stuff that you're willing to go preach and die for what you're preaching, because I'm not.
Who was the one
I
who
mean,
wrote the letter to the Corinthians, Sean? I forgot.
So that was Paul.
Was it Paul? That was Paul,
Yeah,
right?
because he was
that's
there,
what I was
right?
thinking.
Yeah. So before I came, I was like, because this was my friend's part of the trip. I wanted to go to Croatia. So I was like, I'll go to Athens with you. I never really had a desire to come here. Now I'm kind of embarrassed that I never had a desire to come here. The place is not the cleanest place I've ever been, but it's like every major city. It's kind of dirty, a lot of weird people, and a lot of graffiti. But other than that, there are no attractions I have ever been that compared with the museum for the Acropolis I was at today. Like, I've never been to a museum that was that good in my whole life, and I'm old.
Yeah, but I would also imagine it has something to do with the heritage and the history of that particular place.
Right.
Like, if you think about Athens in essence, it's basically where the Olympics started, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. They had a few things they came up with here. Right.
That we
So
still
I'm
follow.
there. I'm at the place called the Gymnasium today, which is basically, I believe, is a training site. Well, up on the top where all the stone carvings are not. It looked like gay porn. I think it may have been a cover. And I know I shouldn't say that, but I think it may have been a cover.
The YMCA on basically a porn channel.
Yeah. So all of the men appear to be naked with their junk hanging out on everything here. And then all of the women seem to be completely covered up.
Oh, wait. So this is a question that I have only because we did the Kama Sutra. So do you think that it has something to do with how back in those times, it was innocent to be naked around other folks?
Right.
Where it didn't really matter.
And pre-marriage here, it was common for men to be with younger men. Pretty common. And so if you, the way the Bible changed in 1946 is the wording went from sexual perversion to homosexuality. Homosexuality had never been mentioned before that.
Hey, look at Alexander. Alexander the Great.
Is it great?
Isn't that like, aren't you very close to
I thought you meant look at him. I'm like, I don't have
in the
anything.
world.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's kind of the confusing thing is you look and go, okay, so you switch the language. Why? Why would you switch the language? So sexual perversion was men of power using young men as sexual toys or to abuse them one way or another. That's what they meant by it, but which, eventually ended up being the other thing. But here's one more thing I want to talk about here real quick. So Paul, when he was here, what he was all upset about were the statues that were everywhere. Because there are statues everywhere. That museum was full of maybe 1,000 of them of different people, like people of importance at the time. And evidently having people carve your stuff was pretty okay.
It's the posh version of a fucking selfie back then.
Right. And everybody that was here had money. I mean, this port is shockingly big. There were 18 freighters waiting to come in. 18.
Wow.
Right. Shockingly big. So everybody had money back then. So you get your own thing done, and you probably paid an homage to whomever to get up on one of the buildings. And then after you died, they probably chipped you off and put somebody else up there and made money that way. I mean, just like everywhere else.
That's how you get donations at museums.
Right.
You rebrand them every now and then, though I'm still upset that some of the museums are called after the Sackler family in the US.
Right. Yeah, they need to stop that and just go, the biggest drug dealers in America paid for this museum. But so Paul was all upset about that. And that's what his writings included, that every place he would go, there were these false gods. And Paul was a radical. I mean, come on. It's his version of what it is. So who thought we were going to talk religion today? But we're not really talking religion. We're talking one guy. So yeah, it's an odd. I mean, it's pretty neat. I mean, the whole thing is really, the city is enormous.
Yeah.
Not very many tall buildings. And God knows we got the nicest Airbnb. I don't know how she booked this thing, but yeah, nice.
Sean,
Nice,
I'll tell
bro.
you, like those cities are the most beautiful because they don't let you go over like 4 stories high.
Right.
Those are the
Exactly.
nice cities because
Yeah.
you are limiting the light pollution that you create in the sky. So right
Oh,
about
wow.
you, I can actually see the stars, whereas I can't even see it
Oh,
here.
wow. Right. Oh, wow. God,
Mhm.
that's legit. Well, I'll see if I can turn around. I got a full moon rolling the other way.
It's actually the big moon.
I mean, this is about as good. Yeah, that's about as good as it gets right there. I get this on one side, that on the other side. I mean, it's been a neat trip. And so I was in Croatia before this. I don't know if I still have you on the camera angle there. I'm trying
Yeah,
to
you
stay
do.
on one side. In Dubrovnik, Croatia, which is that place. Dude, we need to meet there.
Oh,
Food
hell
was
yeah.
dynamite. People were dynamite. The only bad thing that happened is we did a kayak outing, and it had been raining for 2 days, and so we were on the open sea,
Oh.
two of us in a kayak, and maybe 1.5, 2 foot swells, and having to pump through all of those. My ass is so sore from that plastic seat working. I haven't worked that hard in my
Sean,
well, since I was 30.
one thing you need to know
Oh,
about me is that I am
yeah.
highly capable of drowning. It's the
Oh,
one skill I know I have.
oh, wow. God, that's nuts. Okay, so my lights just came back on. There we go. I think I'm back on for another 20 minutes or so. Nope. Shoot. All right. I might have to stay out here now. We'll get the full moon behind me on the other side.
Oh,
But
hell
yeah,
yeah.
things are, but this has been, it's been a nice trip. And I know the whole religion end of it turns some people off, but you just go, how many times in life are you going to walk the steps of a couple of apostles? Whether you
One,
believe or not doesn't even matter to me. I don't care.
wait, 1 second. It's about that post you shared the other day.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter which religion. They see the old, um, like the really old nuns at school would always
Right.
tell us, irrespective of our religion, they would tell us that you're all on different paths, but it's
Mhm.
going to lead you to the same end. And
Place.
I did not know whether they meant death or they just meant you're all
Right.
going to the same place.
So I did not grow up thinking we were the one religion, but a whole bunch of my friends did. And if you
Mhm.
read through that thread, oof, man, there were some people trying to lecture me. And I'm not a good person to fight with on this. I grew up with two nuns and a priest in the family that were at our house constantly. I mean, I'm not the guy to fight with. And if they were nuns and priests and weren't believers in that, but
Mhm.
people that are that rigid really maybe believe everything verbatim or word for word.
Yep.
And I understand storytelling because I'm a storyteller. You understand storytelling because you're a storyteller. Now, us Irish never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Fuck yeah. That's what I love
And I
about
would,
you guys.
yeah, and I would say that for anybody that's a good storyteller, you can't stick to a rigid story and make it work, and then say, "But it only works for me. The rest of these people don't get to go." And you're like, "Why not? The bus is
Mhm.
big enough for all of us." So, but that's been my deal here. It's an interesting time. Evidently, somebody was planning on doing something terrible to the orange guy. I did find that out when I was in Dubrovnik, and you know,
No,
I think if you
I
go golf on your own golf course, you need to have your own security.
did, dude.
It's yours.
Sean, it sounded like the Looney Tunes cartoon where
Yeah,
that guy who usually hunts Bugs Bunny was hiding in
yeah,
the
right,
bushes, and Secret Service saw a rifle sticking out, and they were like, "Oh
right,
shit, there's where he is."
right. Yeah, but I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's your property.
Yeah.
You chose to do it. I sooner or later we've got to take some personal culpability or some personal responsibility on that stuff. But anyway, I'm glad nothing happened, to be honest, because
Same.
we could possibly have a revolution over something like that.
The Daily Show, Ronnie Chang had the best thing to say about it.
Yeah,
He was like, "How about you just build a, I hate saying this, but a wall around that golf
right.
course so that you're safer."
No. Okay, that was good. Well, I mean, if he's worth as much money as he says he is, it's
Mhm.
ridiculous that that is that unsecure.
Yeah.
And the guy was there for 12 hours. I mean, that's crazy. All right, how are we looking time-wise?
Time-wise, we're good, but I just wanted to tell you this last thing
Okay.
before we go, for the sole reason that
Yes.
there is a bit I do on corruption here now,
Yeah.
just because I was
Oh, wow.
bored.
You just want to go to fucking jail, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Sean.
Okay.
Sean, you should realize when I was in my teens, the number one song on the billboards was Britney Spears' Hit Me Baby One More Time. I grew up with that fucking song, so you can't really
That's your
blame me for
mentality.
around all the time.
Jeez. Hey, man, be careful, dude. All right, what are you covering?
Okay, so I do this bit about corruption and how corruption is prevalent all over the world.
Yes.
And my bit goes into explain to them about corruption in the education system in Oklahoma and
Oh, nice.
how
Good.
you can steal inhaler money from
Yeah. Yeah.
people.
From children.
Yeah,
Children with
steal
asthma.
inhaler money from asthmatics children. And that's my entire bit to circle back to tell them the next time y'all complain about corruption and say, I'm going to leave India, just realize that this shit happens all over the world.
Right. Yeah, there's nothing special. What people here would say, I don't know, there is must be an outdoor concert behind me. I see the lights and the loud music, but right over there.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like a big concert. Yeah, I mean, it's literally a sizable concert right there. The Southeast Oklahoma boys learned their corruption from Louisiana, obviously. I mean, Louisiana's the most corrupt place in America. They make New Yorkers look like they don't even know how to do it.
The
All right,
French
my friend, tell
colony.
your mom, do it. Yeah, the French brought it. Yeah, what a shock. All right, I'm going to get rolling. I want you to see these lights that they've got because they look like searchlights. And I don't know, can you catch those going to the sky?
Yes, I can.
There's like 50 of them. Yeah,
Oh, wait,
that's not a
so
concert.
John,
I don't even
that
know why
place
that
that
exists.
that place you're looking
Right there.
at was
Yeah.
basically where Bill Burr performed a show 3 months ago.
Oh,
It's
you're kidding
actually
me.
an amphitheater.
Over there. Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know what languages they're speaking right now. God, I would love to have seen that.
Yeah.
Hey, give some thought to the Dubrovnik thing. That place is special. You do have to be able to climb stairs, though.
Mm.
I haven't done this much cardio in decades. Decades.